Brothers and sisters who are happy in the DHAMMA, today I would like to explain one discourse that I find in Samyuttanikaya, especially in Eternal Samyutta. The name of this discourse is LOKASUTTA. The meanings of LOKASUTTA is the discourse on world. So when we are talking about the world, normally people will think that the world is a kind of like the universe. But in Buddhism, sometimes the so-called world is actually referring to our world of experience. So here, Lord Buddha is teaching to his disciples about how this world arises, especially the worlds of experience arises and how it ends. And this teaching is very important because when it is stated as the arisings of the world, it means the arisings of suffering. While when it is stated as the endings of the world, it means the endings of the suffering. So let us see what is the meanings of this discourse. So Savatthi yang viharati, so it happens in Savatthi. So this discourse is given by Lord Buddha when he was staying in Savatthi, especially in the park, in the monastery built by a certain donator. He is Anathapindika. So here the Buddha said, Lokasa bhikkhave samudayancha atangamancha dijasami. O monks, I will preach to you the originations of the world and the endings of the world. So the originations of the world and the endings of the world. Tang sunata sadukang manasi karuta. So listen and pay attention well. Basi samiti I will speak. Ewang bandeti kote bhikkhu bhagavato pacasosung. So those monks replied the Blessed One by saying, Ewang bante, yes bante. Bhagava itadavuca. Then the Blessed One said thus. So what the Buddha said here? Katha mocha bhikkhave lokasa samudayo. So, O monks, what is actually the originations of the world? Chakun cha padicharupe cha upajati chakuvinyanang tinang sangati paso pasa pacayavidana. So the Buddha said that dependence on I and the form, there arises the I consciousness. So when there is the I and the form, that is the objects of the I, so there arises the I consciousness. Tinang sangadipaso. So when these three things get together, that means the I, the forms, and the I consciousness get together, there arises phasa. Phasa means contact. Phasa pacaya vedana. So with the phasa, with the contact as the condition, so there arises feeling, vedana. Vedana pacaya tanha. So with this feeling as the condition, there arises craving. So when there is a feelings in our, our minds, whether the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling, there arises a craving. Tanha pacaya upadana. So with this craving as the condition, there arises clinging, attachment. So when there is a craving, so there will be attachment. It's like when we actually crave some things, so there will be attachment. So we crave something and we get something, and ultimately we attach to that thing. For example, we see the car, and then we feel like, pleasant feeling seeing that car. So because of that pleasant feeling, there is a craving. We crave how to get that car. And because of that craving, and then we get that car, this is just for one instant, and then there is the attachment. There is the clinging. And then the Buddha said, Upadana Pacaya Bhavo. So with clinging, with attachment as the condition, there arises bhava, becoming. Becoming means something that's, that's when we have the attachment, and then we have to become something. So in Buddhism, that means something that's we have to become a creature, we have to become a being, we have to become something like as to whether we are being reborn as the human beings or the lower world or in the higher world. Bhava pacaya jati. So with becoming as the condition, there will be the birth. So we can see that when there is the becoming, so there will be the birth. So we are reborn as any kinds of births, as to whether we are reborn as the human beings or as the creatures in the lower world, or as the creatures in the higher world, like as the deities or in the Brahma world. Jati pacaya jara maranang, soka parideva dukkha dumanaso paisa sambhavanti. So with this birth as the conditions, so there arises the old age and the death, as well as the sorrow, lamentation, suffering, stress, and then having the less, losing the hope rises. All kinds of suffering arises due to this birth. You see, of course, anyone can experience, because when we are living in this world, so we have to face various kinds of suffering in our life. The lamentation, sorrow, depressions, worriness, the fear, and so on rises because of we are being born in this world. So this is what the Buddha said, Ayang ko bhikkhave lokasa samudayo. So this is, O monk, as the originations of the world. So what is called as the world in Buddhism is the world of experience. That what we experience now through our eyes, not only just our eyes, but in this discourse we can see here, not only just our eyes, but also through our ears, our nose, our tongue, our bodies, and our minds, our 6 sense organs, together with their each objects of these organs, sense organs, that make up the world of experience. And because of this world of experience, due to these 6 organs, we have to face various kinds of sufferings. And because these 6 sense organs, there arises various kinds of consciousness. And because of these consciousness and the other tools, the sense organs, the object, and the consciousness, there will arise, that is the contact. And from the contact, there arises feeling. And from that feeling, there arises craving. And from that craving, there arises clinging, attachment. And from that attachment, there arises becoming. From that becoming arises a birth. And because of the birth, we are living in this world. Due to the birth, so there arises various kinds of suffering. We have to face the old age, the death, the sorrow, lamentation, the stress, the worriness, the fear, any kinds of suffering we have to experience in this very life, in this journey of life. So this is how the world of experience arises. Lokasa samudayo. So now we have to continue what the Buddha said. Kathamo cha bhikkhave lokasa tangamo. So, O monks, so how, or we can say, what is the ending or the cessations of the world? Lokasa atangamo. That means kind of the endings or the cessations of the world. So atangamo is really from the two words atang and gamo. Atang means kind of the goal, the destination, and gamo is going to the destination, going to the goal. That means kind of the cessation, cessations of the world. So what is the cessations of the world? So the Buddha here says, Chakuncha padicharupecha upajati chakuvinyanam. And dependence on the I and the forms, there arises the I consciousness. Just like in the beginning, Tinang Sangadipaso, and with the three get together, that is the chaku, the I, and the form and the I consciousness, there arises pasa. Pasa means a contact. Pasa pacaya vidana. With the contact as the condition, there arises feeling. Vidana pacaya tanha. With this feeling as the condition, there arises craving. Tasayeva tanhaya asesa viraga nirodha upadana nirodho. So this is a different. So the same thing is that until the same thing as the above already mentioned is just until pasa pacaya vidana. So with this pasa, the kanta as the condition, there arises feeling. And until this vidana pacaya tanha. And then with this feeling as the condition, there arises craving. But then it continues differently. Tasayeva tanhaya asesa viraga nirodha upadana nirodho. So with the cessation and fading away without remainder, that very craving. So this is very important, When we are contacting with our sense organs to these objects of sense organs, it immediately arises the consciousness. And with these three get together, it immediately rises the contact. And with the contact as the condition, there rises feeling. But we can choose as to whether when there arises the feeling, we can choose as to whether we can eliminate the cravings or not. So here we can have the opportunity to eliminate, to destroy the craving, even though the feeling rises within our minds. While seeing the objects, while experiencing the objects, while we have the feeling, we can eliminate this very craving. So that's why here the Buddha says, Tasaiva tanhaya asesa viraga nirodha upadana nirodho. So with the cessation and the fading away without remaining, that very tanha, that very craving. So there is the cessation of clinging. There is the cessation of attachment. So when the craving ceases, so the attachment also ceases. Upadana nirodha bhava nirodho. So here. Upadana nirodha bhava nirodho. So with the cessation of this clinging, there is the cessation of bhava, the becoming. So here there is tampe, that means a kind of something repetition. So it means that with the cessation of the bhava, there is the cessation of the jati. That means when there is no any becoming, so there is no any birth in any kinds of the realm, in any kinds of creature. So when there is no any birth, jati nirodha, when there is no any birth, there is also no any kinds of suffering. There is no any old age, the death, the sorrow, lamentation, the stress. Any kinds of suffering will not happen, will not arise, because of there is no any birth. So here the Buddha continues to say, Evam etasa kivalasa dukkha kandasa nirodho hoti. So this is how the cessation of the whole mass of suffering happens. Ayango bhikkhave lokasa atangamo. So, O monks, this is the endings of the world. This is the cessation of the world. So that means when there is the cessation of craving, there is the cessation of clinging, the becoming, the birth, and any kinds of suffering. So there is the cessation of this world of experience. So this is the peace. This is actually referring to Nibbana, referring to the ultimate happiness that all the practitioners of Dhamma, all the practitioners of the teachings of the Buddha need to reach, need to realize. So that also happened not only with regard to the eye and the objects or the form, but also all kinds of other sense organs with their respective objects of sense organs. So with regard to the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and also the minds, when they just able, when the practitioners of the dhammas are able to eliminate the very craving that arises due to these sense organs, and they can eliminate totally without remaining that very craving because of the sense organs and the objects and so on, and then all other defilements of minds like the clinging and other things also being eliminated. So this is also the endings of the world. It means this is also the way how to end the suffering, how to end various kinds of sufferings in the world. So this is how the Buddha says about how the world rises, the originations of the world, and how the world ceases, or the endings of the world. It means that this is also the teachings of the Buddha referring to how the suffering arises and how the suffering ceases. And this is very important. And how to do that? Of course, we have to always notice, especially in this case, in this very discourse, the arisings of the craving. So when the feeling rises, how we can choose, how we can have the opportunity not to let the craving arises, not to let the craving which already arises, but not develop, but we have to eliminate the rising craving at that time. By means of that, so the endings of suffering could happen, possibly could happen. So thank you very much. So this is the discourse on LOKASUTTA, on the world, given by the Buddha, which means the worlds of our experience. Thank you very much. May all beings be happy.